Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. A young Nunavut actress is dead, and Nunavut RCMP are investigating it as a murder. Emerald McDonald was one of the young stars of The Grizzlies, an award-winning Nunavut film about a lacrosse team in her hometown of Kugluktuk. She was last seen in that town on April 30th getting supplies to head to her family's cabin. Her body was discovered at a cabin on May 3rd. Nunavut RCMP say they are investigating McDonald's death as a homicide and ask anyone who saw her between April 30th and May 3rd to contact RCMP. To Ottawa now, where today's news on the COVID front was a warning to keep following public health guidelines over the long weekend, and that the federal government expects all eligible Canadians to be fully vaccinated by the end of September. But Intergovernmental Affairs Minister Romeo LeBlanc was asked if that deadline was still possible. That's because of a slowdown in shipments of the Moderna vaccine, lowering the amount of doses from 48 million to 40 million.
Yes, the government is absolutely on track to ensure that every Canadian who's eligible and wants a vaccine, including, of course, eligible younger people as those eligibility criteria evolve, we're confident that that will be the case for every Canadian by the end of September. They will be fully vaccinated if they choose to be vaccinated.
There is cautious optimism in Iqaluit today as Nunavut's case count continues to drop slowly. Right now there are 45 active cases in Nunavut. All but one are in Iqaluit. Today, Nunavut Chief Public Health Officer Dr. Michael Patterson was asked about a persistent bit of vaccine rumor. People have been posting pictures of metal sticking to their arms following a vaccine, saying it's magnetic. According to Dr. Patterson, that's not something to be worried about.
Yeah, that's fake. That is misinformation about the vaccines. The Moderna and Pfizer, they're safe, they're effective, they are best protection against COVID-19, and the comments or stories about chips and metal that attracts magnet, they are not true in any way.
It's been 2.5 years since recreational cannabis became legal in Canada, and business is still booming. In Winnipeg, a First Nations man is carving a path for future Indigenous entrepreneurs looking to get into the industry. Brittany Hobson has that story.
Let's get high.
Uncle Sam's is officially open for business. The retailer is Winnipeg's newest cannabis shop, and it is Indigenous owned and operated.
It is very attainable now to get a license in Manitoba. Go back when I first got into it, it was very much a lottery style system. Now, if you have your ducks in a row, yeah, it's attainable to get. And so it took us 6 weeks.
Josh Giesbrecht is the owner of Uncle Sam's Manitoba branch. The store shares space with his other venture, Exchange PPE. In Manitoba, there are a number of First Nations participating in the retail side of the cannabis market, whether that is on or off reserve. But it's believed Giesbrecht is one of the first First Nations person to operate a shop independently. The 30-year-old got his start in the business in 2017 with a CBD business. At the beginning of this year, he decided to open his own retail store.
It's probably the biggest, I would argue, cultural shift and political shift I'll see in my lifetime. And I look at the product, not only does it have huge medical potential and benefits, but it also has huge life quality benefits. And that's what really Uncle Sam's brand is that you no longer have to feel like you need a good excuse to be in a cannabis store. It's legal to do. There should be no stigma.
Uncle Sam's was originally started in Alberta. There are 8 locations in the Edmonton area. Giesbrecht decided to team up with the retailer to expand store locations in Manitoba and eventually Saskatchewan. He now owns 60% of the company. Unlike other retailers with their clean and sleek designs, Uncle Sam's brand pays homage to the stores of the past.
It's a cannabis culture store. and it's a legal one. I think there's this unfortunate divide that still exists between the legacy market and the legal market. And often the two feel like they can't coexist, right? That the legacy market can't become a part of the legal one and vice versa. And this brand is showing, no, it can be done. It can be done legally, regulated, with consistency and testing, where all products are safe, but it's still fun.
Giesbrecht, who is from Roseau River and Anishinaabe First Nation, says it was important to provide economic opportunities for Indigenous people in the city. The majority of his staff are First Nations or Métis.
As an industry, the cannabis industry, the legal part of it, done a horrible job of having people of color, never mind Indigenous, actually involved. And so for me, that's a big priority because it needs to reflect, the reality of what's, actually in our society. We need to have a part of that economic pie.
Courtney Niepenik is from Pine Creek First Nation. Today is her first day as bud tender. She's excited to learn about the business.
Just gaining more knowledge about the product.
Giesbrecht plans to open another location in July. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Nice to see Giesbrecht blazing a new trail. Time now to step aside for a quick break, but stick around. There's much more to come. Welcome back. The Tahltan Nation in northern BC is demanding Bell Media stop airing the mining reality TV show Jade Fever. The TV series follows the Bunce family in their search of million-dollar boulders of jade in northern BC's Cassiar Mountains. The Nation says the TV show fails to demonstrate responsible environmental stewardship and negatively impacts Tahltan rights and titles. It's also calling on the province of BC to immediately suspend all placer and hard rock jade mining and placer gold operations on Tahltan territory.
Basically, it's our view, rightfully so, that this is an illegal activity, that it's degrading the environment in a big way, and we just aren't going to tolerate the ongoing disrespectful industry, the ongoing, patronization of our people, and we want it taken off the air.
Nicole Luke is set to make history this fall when she graduates from the University of Manitoba. The young woman may be one of the first Inuk's to graduate from a national architecture program and is on her way to becoming one of the first Inuk's to work in architecture. Brittany Hobson sat down with Luke and brings us this.
Nicole Luke is putting the finishing touches on her final portfolio. This project is the last thing she has to complete before she graduates with her master's in architecture from the University of Manitoba. Come graduation time in the fall, the 24-year-old may be the first Inuk to complete a national architecture program. But she's quick to refute the title.
I just know that there's not many. I know some Inuk architecture students or some who are pursuing architecture in post-secondary, but I haven't met an Inuk architect yet.
Luke was born in Yellowknife and moved to Manitoba when she was a young girl. Her family is from Chesterfield Inlet and the Kivalliq region in Nunavut. Her path to architecture started in high school with her love of art classes. She found a way to combine it with other interests.
I just thought that in between science, technology, and art, architecture is right in the center, best of both worlds, and I just thought it was really interesting.
Throughout her education, Luke has taken part in a few different eye-opening experiences across the world. While she says it's hard to pick just one, the one closest to home makes the top of her list.
I was the exhibition designer for Inuit for Hamayuk. That was really exciting.
Luke worked with the all-Inuit curatorial team to help develop the first exhibit for Hamayuk, the Winnipeg Art Gallery's Inuit Art Center. They opened their doors in March after years of construction. Luke says she will cherish the experience.
I just think it's really inspiring. I am still really thankful that I was a part of that process, and I know I'll be looking back 10, 20 years from now saying I helped with the project. I remember seeing the buildings go up, and I'll definitely remember the team that I was working with.
Luke hopes to start working with a firm in the fall. She has to gain 2 years of work experience before she can become a registered architect. After that, she has goals of working and helping with infrastructure development in the Arctic.
I think it's really important to be aware of how much the northern communities will be more globalized, and I think that Inuit should be more involved in that type of development as well, because they are so knowledgeable about the land.
With limited post-secondary options in the north, Luke knows there is a barrier getting Inuit into certain job fields. But with the work she's done now, she's on her way to forging a new path.
For myself, I just hope that I can help create more of a bridge between that, and even if there's some sort of altered architectural path for the Arctic as well, I think that's really important.
Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Congrats, Nicole. Coming up after the break, we'll be speaking with filmmaker Tracy Deer, who took home 2 of the biggest awards last night at the Canadian Screen Awards. Welcome back. Time now to take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 16 for St. John's, 22 in Fredericton, -3 in Inukjuak, 6 and sunny in Nain, 30 with showers for Montreal, showers and 19 in Chibougamau. 25 with rain in Sault Ste. Marie, 21 and showers in North Bay. 24 with rain for Thunder Bay, showers, and 13 for Sioux Lookout. 8 with rain in God's Lake, 10 and rain for Norway House. More rain and 10 for Winnipeg, 6 with rain in Dauphin. Sunny and 12 for Saskatoon, 1 degree warmer in North Battleford. 13 in Uranium City, 15 and sunny for Meadow Lake. Over to northern Alberta, 20 in Fort McMurray, sunny, and 22 in Grand Prairie. 9 with showers for Lethbridge, sunny, and 17 for Edmonton. 22 and sunny in Victoria, sun's out, and 18 for Vancouver. 12 with showers for Dease Lake, 21 in Prince George. 12 with rain for Old Crow and Whitehorse, 15 in Watson Lake. 15 in Yellowknife and Norman Wells. +1 in Sax Harbor, 6 for Paulatuck. -2 in Baker Lake, 4 below for Whale Cove. -4 in Resolute and Joe Haven with snow. A North American-wide casting call is currently underway for Indigenous youth. As APTN's Tina House has this next story about how you can try out for a role, and maybe this is your chance for stardom.
Lights, camera, action. Have you ever wanted to star in a TV series but didn't know how to start? The film industry across North America is booming, and here in Vancouver, BC, otherwise known as Hollywood North, Kelsey Wavy is part of a team looking for an Indigenous male 16 years old and an Indigenous female who's 14 years old to star in an upcoming series that will be streamed on a major U.S. streaming service.
This is the first time the network is doing an open call of this scale. So we are interested in hearing from you. If you know anybody who is around the age of 14 or 16, or if you look around that age, if you can play that age, email in your resume and a headshot, and it can be a selfie, it can be just something on your phone. We just want to see a clear picture of what you look like, no filters. And then we also need an introduction video.
Wavy is working as a casting assistant for casting director Poping O. Young, whose credits include Disney's Mulan and Warner Brothers' blockbuster hit The Meg. You do not need previous experience to submit, and the introduction video should be around 1 minute long.
Just introduce yourself, say your name, and just give us a little bit of information if there's any sports you like to play. And it can be anything athletic. They're asking specifically for martial arts, but also I would just throw in there if you have any like canoeing experience, if you go fishing, if you like to go on runs, if you go hiking, anything, just put it in there because we just want to get to know you a little bit better.
The project is still in early development and a name hasn't been released yet, but it will be shooting across North America in late 2021 to 2022.
we have the talent here. There is so many talented young individuals on reserve, off reserve, that deserve to have this opportunity, and this is it. You can submit, and all of the videos are being considered.
If you are interested in submitting your headshot and resume for any of these roles, you're asked to email opencalls@propinecasting.com by May the 27th. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
Well, Indigenous filmmakers from Quebec came out on top last night at the Canadian Screen Awards. Tracy Deer, a filmmaker hailing from Ganawage Mohawk territory in Quebec, picked up 2 trophies for her debut feature film, Beans, which retells the story of the so-called Oka crisis through the eyes of a preteen girl. Tracy joins us now from Ganawage Mohawk territory. Tracy, thanks for being with us, and a big congrats. Beans won Best Debut Film and Best Canadian Film. Has it sunk in yet?
Not quite. I'm still processing. It was a phenomenal night, a shock, a delight. I clearly don't have the right words at the moment.
The film is inspired by true events, clearly, but it also is personal to you. Why did you decide this was a story you wanted or needed to tell?
Yeah, so I came of age during the Oka crisis. I was 12 years old when all of that went down, and it really marked my transition from being a very carefree child who felt safe in the world, who didn't quite understand what it meant to be Mohawk, to be Indigenous. I was very in touch with my culture. I went to a Mohawk immersion school, but I did not yet know what that meant outside of my community. And then that summer really just sort of blew up that sense of safety, my self-worth, really, my confidence, all of it. It really began a very difficult coming of age for me. And I know that is not uncommon for so many of us. One of the things over the years that I've really been after, I think, with everything that I make, is to be seen and to be understood. That is what that little girl wanted all those years ago, because if she was seen and understood, then people would not have thrown rocks at her. So I wanted that story out there. I wanted people to see and understand what these kind of events, the kind of damage that they do to our kids, and then to our people, to our nations. And I hope that they watch it, they understand, and then they head out into the world to do what they can to make it better.
You know, it's been on the festival circuit. Do you feel that it did challenge some people's perspectives of the 1990 so-called Oka crisis?
So the feedback I've been getting, I mean, it's all been virtual. All of the film festivals have been virtual at this point. So I haven't had a lot of opportunity to interact with audiences, but I have gotten feedback from people who have written me either, through Facebook or Twitter, and they are sharing that it's opened an entirely new perspective for them. They only had what the media at the time portrayed, and we all know that was very one-sided and very biased, and Beans is very much a story told from the inside and from our own perspective. And yes, I've heard really great feedback that it's doing what I hoped it would do out in the world.
Tracy, no doubt a huge night for you, but also a huge night. Jeff Barnaby's Blood Quantum won 7 out of the 10 awards. Michael Greyeyes won lead actor. Tina Keeper received a Lifetime Achievement Award. What does your win and these other Indigenous artists receiving awards, what do you think that does for the overall Indigenous filmmaking industry?
Well, I think it's clear that we're here, we're incredible, and we're not going anywhere. We're just getting started. So I think it's fantastic, because for years we have had to make the case as to why our stories are for more than just our own people. And I think this year we have now proven it without a doubt. So there's no more excuses to keep us out.
Well, Tracy, I am very excited to see this movie. Again, congrats. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
And congrats to all the other filmmakers and actors we mentioned there. Beans will be available in theaters and for wide release on July 2nd. Well, last week on APTN Investigates, John Murray took us into a community struggling to find answers. They held protests and demanded answers, but they're still waiting. This week in For Trust or Profit Part 2, John talks to Chief Terry Paul and Rob Louie, a man who started a nonprofit group to help grassroots band members. John Murray joins us now from Edmonton. John, good to see you. Can you tell us a bit about what Rob Louie is doing?
Well, Louie's formed a nonprofit called Band Members Alliance and Advocacy Association of Canada, or BMAC. He's partnered with lawyers and law firms to get legal representation for band members who've run out of options when dealing with their community's leadership. For example, last weekend for Trust or Profit was the community of Minnesota Lake Cree Nation. We visited the community in March of this year. Since that time, BMAC's got the assistance of a lawyer to begin challenging the Minnesota leadership. And in addition, Mr. Louie recently told me that BMAC's has significantly increased its caseload. BMAC's advocating for people and will even escalate things to the courts if necessary.
Yeah, what's your sense of how big of a need is there for this type of organization?
Well, as was said in Part 1, many of these concerns are from community members in Indian Act-governed First Nations. Many self-governing nations, such as the ones using custom election codes or who have entered into modern treaties, may have accountability measures in place, like an appeals process. And when it comes to money, there is the First Nations Financial Transparency Act, but it may not be enough, and it's an Ottawa-based system. And First Nations leaders have been calling for a First Nations Auditor General for years, but often without clear and obvious direction for community members to get the answers, it goes to the Canadian courts. You know, and mainstream Canadians, they can fight City Hall. There's usually an ombudsperson or a specially made tribunal, but it's something that isn't there for grassroots band members.
So we'll also be hearing from...
Louie is definitely, and BMAC are definitely filling a need.
Sorry about that, John.
Sorry about that, Dennis.
Our little delay here. We'll also be hearing from Chief Paul. What does he have to say?
Well, you know, for everyone on the outside looking in, Member 2 is called a model community. I mean, they've made headlines repeatedly for their success, most recently with the Clearwater seafood deal. But they've struggled too. And their rise to good fortune took years and years of work. Chief Paul tells us about that and how it all comes down to clear policies and principles that guide them. And he says any Indigenous community can have those. He will give them to them for free.
Well, John, looking forward to seeing Part 2 tonight and appreciate you stopping by to talk to us about it.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Dennis.
And you can catch For Trust or Profit Part 2 coming up on APTN Investigates in about 2 minutes' time. That is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Friday. For news anytime, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. Dennis Ward, thanks for tuning in. Have a great, safe, long weekend.